Here is Dr. Arijeet Mitra. He completed his PhD from IIT Kanpur, following which he was a IOE postdoc at IISc, and now he's an Inspire faculty with the Devecha Center for Climate Change. So Arijeet is going to move, as I was talking about the deep ocean processes, he's going to talk about surface ocean processes and how human activity has been imprinting its signature on the surface of the ocean, even at the most remote possible location, and how we can study that through lead isotopes.
So, hello everyone present. You already know my name. It's Arijeet Mitra, and I'm a Inspire faculty at Devecha Center for Climate Change. One of my research question, which focuses on the source identification and identifying the transportation pathways of anthropogenic lead in the environment as well as in ocean waters. So, why I'm calling it anthropogenic lead is because lead, because of its malleable and corrosive resistant property, has been used in various sectors of industries. For example, you can see here how much lead is being emitted by each, like fossil fuel burning, industrial emission, etc. And if we look into the entire global biogeochemical cycle of lead and only focus on the surface, the anthropogenic flux is around an order high, almost an order higher than their natural fluxes. So we need a tracer, a unique anthropogenic tracer, to understand this process, like how lead is mobilizing from one reservoir to the another reservoir. And for that, if you go to a unique tracer, first we discussed that lead itself has like 3 isotopes, out of which 3 are their radiogenic daughter products, which are like decayed from uranium and thorium, and one is the stable isotope, which is the 204. So if we couple these isotopes, it becomes a unique tracer. For example, all these components which are like emitting lead in the environment have their unique isotopic signature. For example, if you see in this like triple isotope plot, gasoline, fly ash, coal, every N member will have their different isotopic signature. So if we have to give a clear idea, I have introduced a study which has been done by my former lab, where they have collected aerosol from Kanpur and measured their lead isotope signature. And you can see here this red symbols which overlap with the leaded gasoline, indicating that the lead in Kanpur atmosphere is actually coming from the leaded gasoline. So using this concept, I would like to understand how the lead is being transported to the Indian Ocean, as well as like what are the transportation pathways that are following in the deep ocean. You could see here in this map, like the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal, the lead concentration is extremely high compared to the entire global ocean. Although there's a limitation in this map, is that there's only one data point which is based on, which is used for creating this map. So this is where I want to fill the gap. I want to have a complete idea about an understanding about what is the lead scenario in Indian Ocean. And there's only one existing study by a MIT professor where they have done a complete trail through Arabian Sea to the Southern Ocean through different sampling stations and 2 stations in the Bay of Bengal. And this is how the depth profile map looks. The lead concentration varies from the station 2 to station 14 invariably, and also their isotopic signatures are very different. So if we just focus on the surface layer, you could see that with different location, like different longitudinal location, the isotopic signature are changing. For example, this circle, like the station 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, which is closer to the Indian peninsula, have a more anthropogenic lead signature, whereas this like 10, 11, 12, 14, which is more towards the Southern Ocean, will have a lesser contribution from the anthropogenic N members. All over the entire lead signature that we see in the Indian Ocean are coming from or correlating with the leaded gasoline, but in the station which are close to the Indian peninsula has a higher anthropogenic fraction compared to the one which are in like far away. And which you can also relate because there's lots of industries in this area, for example, Bombay High and other petroleum industries. So this is more evident. And another thing is that you see here, this is the point, this is the station 2 point, which is closer and in the Bay of Bengal, which has a very different lead isotope signature compared to being closer to the Indian peninsula, because the dust and the source of lead in this region is very different from what is going in the Arabian Sea because of the different wind pattern in these two coasts. And this process is more evident if you look into the lead concentration versus lead isotope. Like this closer to peninsular regions have a high lead concentration, along with that they have a more anthropogenic lead signature, whereas the other stations have a more lesser lead concentration and less anthropogenic imprint on them. So this is the scenario that you observe from the samples collected along like 2009 and 2010, which is like 14 years back. And there's a study by Bermuda Atlantic Time Series, which is they have collected lead in a depth profile over the time series of like around 14-15 years, and you can clearly see that lead has a residence time of 10 years, and with the phasing out of leaded gasoline in US, there is a decline of lead concentration in the seawater from like 150 to around 50. So this is where I want to fill the gap and understand what is the current scenario of lead contamination or lead pollution in Indian Ocean. But even saying that it's not easy to do lead chemistry because it's plagued with contamination, and lead measurement has a multiple steps, like starting from sample collection, sample processing, lead separation and measurement. And every step has been like, there is a risk of contaminating because the atmosphere, the air, everywhere there is lead. So we have found a way to remove the contamination part. So we think that we will, and we have planned that we will collect the samples through Niskin bottles, like which is metal-free, like, and with two pumps, two stoppers, and can go to any depth and without any risk of mixing water from the downward or upward depths. And this is what we regularly use for our river water sampling. You can see here, this is Sambuddha and Satya from my lab. They are doing sampling in Ganga river waters. And followed by that, we will process the samples in our class 10,000 clean lab, where the instrumental blanks are as low as 0.3 picogram, which allows us and like makes sure that there is no contamination inside the lab, or whatever the reagents that we are using have a very less lead contamination or lead blanks. So even if we go through the entire lead separation chemistry, the lead blanks are as low as 0.7, which allows us to target samples like seawater, corals, on any low concentration or like difficult matrix-rich samples. So the last few months I have been working on like developing a method where we can measure the lead isotope in-house through different chemistry. This is the recipe that we have created to separate the lead from the matrix element. You can see there is a clear separation of other matrix elements from the lead, and this column chemistry or the separation technique has been further optimized by using different type of acids, where we collect the lead in a small sample anelicode and also make sure there is no column induced fractionation which can change their original isotopic signature. So the chemistry part is good. We have tested it very properly, and we have also tested whether the columns or our chemistry can handle samples like seawater, which has a very high sodium load. So we have diluted the seawater in different sodium to lead ratios and checked whether the standards ratio is coming what, and you can see it's just, this is the reported value, and it's just spot on. So our method actually can take care of high matrix rich sample and can separate the lead without having any fractionation throughout the process. We have also tested the different kind of samples, for example, leaf, root, dust, seawater, and also measured, like collected the alicot and measured the same sample in two instruments. One is the single collector ICP-MS that we have, and another in the multi-collector ICP-MS, to check the accuracy of our method. And you can see here it just falls into 1:1 line. So overall, we are set with the measurement and analytical part. We can measure samples for seawater, corals, and etc. So the analytical part is under control right now, and based on this method, we are currently working on two projects. One is on the Ganga estuarine system, where we have collected sample across the salinity gradient to understand how Ganga, which is the biggest contributor to Bay of Bengal, is contributing lead, because estuarine environment is very complex and most of the elements get deposited because of the salinity gradient change. So we have collected the sediments as well as the water samples, and we are currently working on it. And this project I am working with Pratyusha, who is a PhD student, and we have also collaborated with NCPOR, Walihur Rahman and Tariq, where they have given us a coral sample to create the record for lead pollution history for the last 20 years. Satya has already worked on it, and I'm going to show you some brief results. So we are targeting smaller research questions, not smaller, like different research questions in order to understand the bigger science question, like what is the scenario that has been for lead pollution for the last 20 years as well as the current scenario. And this is how the record looks like. This is the lead by calcium ratio. You could see here with the increase of time, there is a shift from 25 to around 100 lead by calcium ratio, which shows that there has been increased lead emission in the ocean over the time. Similarly, in the isotope space, you can see there is a shift towards the more anthropogenic imprint over the time. And to better understand, we have plotted this data in a triple isotope space, and the entire data range of 20 years, you see here I have divided in 5 years, and the last 2006 to 2010 is going towards the more anthropogenic end members compared to the other initial years. This is because India has started using the leaded gasoline in late compared to US. You can ask that during the 90s, the US has already phased out and the Atlantic Ocean is already clean from leaded gasoline. Why it's still there? Because we have phased out in 2000, but the leaded gasoline is still there, ubiquitously present in the environment. If you go to the Himalayas, there 55% of the lead is actually coming from the leaded gasoline, which is because it's recirculating from the environment and getting deposited to other environments. So that's why we need to have a removal, lead removal technique, which is where Alok and Samudha is working on using the microbial activities, like how lead can be removed through the environment. And the most interesting project which I am very interested in is the upcoming cruise trip, where we are going to collect depth profile sample of seawater along the Mauritius to this Bharti station, and the depth profile seawater collection we will do in every 5-degree latitude, and also collect their atmospheric dust to properly constrain where the dust is coming from, where the lead is coming from. It's mostly from the atmospheric dust, because the Ganga or the main riverine input is negligible in compared to the atmospheric dust that is getting deposited in the oceans. So this is the upcoming highlight of my work, where I will be going to this cruise trip and collecting seawater samples to reconstruct or identify the lead pollution in southern Indian Ocean. So I'm thankful to DST for providing me this fellowship, and also ISC for my ISC IOE postdoctoral fellowship, during which I was doing all this lead measurement work. So thank you so much.
We do have a time for a couple of questions. Anybody?
Yeah.
So, Bay of Bengal and Caribbean Sea is like an upward lake, right?
That's what we see here based on one single data point. So that's where I want to fill the gap. Yeah.
Yeah, so my question is, only river runoff is the major source of lead in the ocean, or other processes are also there?
It's mostly the atmospheric deposit, because the rivers are carrying the lead is getting deposited in the estuary because of the salinity gradient. Estuary has a different, it's in itself as a complex process where they remove elements from river water or sediments. So the high concentration of lead that you see here in Bay of Bengal or Arabian Sea is mostly from the industrial activity that is present in the Arabian Sea or the dust.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, cool. We thank Arijeet for his talk.